What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have a lot to talk to you about today, starting with Tropical Storm Erick, as it is expected to potentially become a major hurricane and make landfall in Mexico. We're going to be talking a lot about that today and what impacts it could have on the Atlantic. We're also going to be talking about the MDR again as well, kind of looking at more model runs, looking at conditions to kind of see, okay, we're looking at these probabilities of development. What are they seeing, and how can we take a better look at it? So we are going to go ahead and dive right into it right here. We're going to go ahead and start with the National Hurricane Center's advisory right here, according to what we have going on in the Eastern Pacific. And this is Tropical Storm Erick right here. Currently a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Minimum central pressure 1,001 millibars. It is moving west-northwest at 9 miles per hour. Its current location is at 12.6 degrees north, 94.1 degrees west. It's currently looking at the tropical storm force winds. It's 45 miles from the center. Rapid strengthening is forecast during the next day or two, and Erick is expected to become a hurricane by tonight or early Wednesday. Erick is forecast to become near major hurricane strength as it approaches southern Mexico. And let's go ahead and read the discussion right here as well. Erick's structure continues to show signs of organization, with microwave paths possibly showing the initial development of an inner core. Subjective Dvorak estimates are at 35 knots, and the latest objective ADT estimate is at 40 knots. Based on this is at 9 o'clock Central Standard Time or 10 o'clock Central Daylight Time, or pretty much 8 o'clock Pacific Time. Erick has slowed down a little bit and is moving west-northwestward. The environment appears ideal for rapid strengthening. We're going to read this out real quickly. Vertical wind shear is expected to be very low, with the cyclone moving over waters around 29 degrees Celsius, which for those of you tuning in from the United States is 84 degrees Fahrenheit. And with a moist mid-level environment of around 80% relative humidity. As a result of these conditions, rapid intensifications indices are rather high, particularly for the 36 and 48-hour periods. The NHC intensity forecast shows explicitly rapid intensification occurring while Erick approaches the coast of southern Mexico, with a 48-hour intensity just below major hurricane strength officially. Despite this increase in the forecast intensity, there are still a few models, including the normally skillful HCCA8, that show Erick reaching major hurricane strength, and additional upward adjustments in the forecast could be required later today. And if we go ahead and show you the cone, it is expected to make landfall as around a 110-mile-per-hour hurricane right here. If we go ahead and show you the graphics right here, and we have the cone pulled up, it is expected to make landfall around the Acapulco area with around 110 miles per hour. For those of you who do not know, Acapulco is actually where Hurricane Otis made landfall as a Category 5 hurricane with winds of 165 miles per hour and absolutely devastated the area. Over there, caused a lot of mudslides, caused a lot of landslides, and all of that stuff as well. So it looks like Erick, for right now, is going to be mainly staying in the Eastern Pacific, but it's going to be much stronger than I think a lot of people were anticipating at this point yesterday. Before, we were thinking, okay, maybe this is a hurricane contender, but there's no way this could be major hurricane strength. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this could potentially be major hurricane strength, so you're going to want to pay attention to that going forward. And now let's go ahead and go ahead and look at the satellite imagery to kind of get a closer look as to what's going on. And we'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit to Erick just to kind of show you this right here. Erick's structure does continue to improve on satellite right here. Initially, you're seeing more sustained convection organizing and developing. The core is starting to build up, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. This is a pretty decently organized tropical storm for a 50-mile-per-hour system, so you're going to want to keep a very close tab on it. I actually want to go ahead and go to the DAPIA website and pull up Erick's satellite right here. We can pull up this visible and the water and the infrared right here. This is what's been blowing up over the last little while. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Seizure warning for those of you who have epilepsy and are prone to flashing lights. Thank you, John, for giving me that warning. And this is going to take a second for it to load. And we're loading. I apologize for this ahead of time. We're going to bear through this, and then we'll go ahead and get into this a little bit. So here's the situation. You're seeing this convection firing off more and more and more. It looks like to me that this is mainly like at least the core of it is like for the convection is concentrated mostly on the western side of it, and it needs to kind of develop more on the eastern side. But you're seeing all these minus 80s and minus 70s blowing up, and all of this going for it right here. And you're going to want to watch this. And we're also watching this in regards to the Atlantic hurricane season #1 to kind of give you some details of to what to look at when that happens in that part of in that part of the world. But also because we're still looking at possible Atlantic impacts with this as well. So this is what we have. This is right here. We're seeing all this convection blowing up, all these hot towers firing off right here that you're going to want to pay attention to as well. Right now, it's a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm, but this is in an area where it is primed for rapid intensification, and I do believe it's going to be doing that very shortly. So if you're tuning in from Mexico, if you're tuning in from Acapulco, the Gulf of Tonopec, you're going to want to pay attention to this. And I did get the email from YouTube that they're going to start auto-dubbing my videos pretty shortly, so this will probably be auto-dubbed in Spanish and Espanol, so you can probably hear it from it like that. But I do appreciate YouTube for letting me know that we're going to start auto-dubbing pretty soon. That'll help us out and get the information that we need out. So now let's go ahead and move on to some model runs. We're going to use the hurricane runs just to show you what's going on. And we'll start with the HMON just to kind of show you this was what was 5. Now we can go ahead and use it for Erick. So here's what we have with Erick. It's expected to organize and develop continuously, actually. We're at 10 o'clock. The HMON initialized this at about 996 millibars. It's still 1001 at this current point in time, so it is running a little weaker than what the HMON was forecasting. But ultimately, you have the system organizing and developing, quickly strengthening. The HMON wants this to get down to a 947 millibar system as it approaches Mexico right here, potentially near Acapulco, just east of that region right there. I do want to look at the main sea level and sea level pressure heights, like 10-meter heights. The HMON is wanting this system to get up to Category 4 strength. That seems a bit outlandish right now, but this is also entering an area where small tropical cyclones like this are notorious for unexpected explosive intensification. So you're going to want to pay attention to that if you're along the Mexican coast. As well, it is expected to weaken as it moves towards land. I'm going to check. I think there's some potential wind shear that's going to be moving through the region. I do want to take a quick look. Actually, I'll take a look at the model runs later, like more operational runs. But ultimately, you have this peaking at Category 4 strength and then weakening down to Category 2 before making landfall in Mexico right here near the Acapulco region. So you're going to want to pay very close attention to that as well. Let's go ahead now and show you the Halves A run. Here is the Halves A, having the system organizing and developing, having this down to a 997 millibar system by 4 p.m. We're going to have to see if that ultimately pans out or not, but then it gets up to hurricane strength, and the Halves A does have this get up to near around high-end Category 3 strength before making landfall as a 969 millibar system, and then a weakening due to land interaction and kind of dissipating and doing all of that stuff. So this is pretty high impact stuff right here. Let's go ahead now and go to the Halves B run. Halves B is pretty interesting. Organizing, developing, already down to 993 millibars by 7 p.m. tonight. We'll have to see how this pans out. But then you have the system making landfall as a Category 2, Category 3 hurricane, and then moving inland, weakening due to land interaction. And that's pretty much what we're going to be watching, especially over the next couple of days as it's approaching land, ladies and gentlemen. And lastly, let's go ahead and show you the H-Wharf. H-Wharf is organizing, developing, already down to a 1,000 millibar system. It looks like the H-Wharf has initialized the best out of all of them because we're already down to 1,000 millibars according to the 12Z run right here. The current readings are 1,001. So then you have this system blowing up, and you have it moving, organizing, and developing, and then strengthening, potentially close to major hurricane strength. The H-Wharf wants this to be a Category 3 hurricane, but then it does start to weaken before making landfall, likely due to land interaction. And then that's pretty much what it does, and then it weakens and dissipates, and that's pretty much what we have going on from there. So that's kind of the situation you are looking at with a tropical storm Erick right now. It is expected to rapidly intensify. The structure of it already looks pretty impressive. Seizure warning, I do apologize. But it already looks pretty impressive right now for a 50-mile-per-hour tropical storm, and that structure is only going to continue to improve, folks, as we continue to watch and we continue to monitor the situation going forward. If you're tuning in from the Gulf of Tehuantepec in the Acapulco region, you're going to want to pay very close attention to this going forward, and we'll continue to monitor this system. Now, the main question is this going to impact the Atlantic? Is it we've seen it in the past that maybe this will end up going into the Bay of Campeche and going into the Gulf. Based on its trajectory, it's very unlikely at this current point. It's pretty much, you can rule it out for mainly the reason because it's moving too far to the west for it to happen. The Bermuda High is really influencing this system. Let's go ahead and show you that very quickly. We're going to pull up the European, and we're going to move on to the North Atlantic. Just to kind of show you what we're looking at. Here's the 0Z European. What you're noticing here is the Bermuda High is really building up right here. You have a blocking pattern as well that we can take a look at. Let's take a look at main sea level pressure anomalies right here. Yeah, you have a blocking pattern across that area, right? You have a blocking pattern across that area that's going to keep it out of the Atlantic side of things and keep it moving further to the west. So you're going to want to pay attention to that as well. I know Andrew Austin Adler was talking to me about it in Storms United yesterday. So that's just something you're going to want to keep tabs on. But ultimately, that's kind of the situation that we're looking at. Erick is still, regardless, going to be a pretty powerful system when it makes landfall. And as it approaches, yes, it is a small system, but these small systems can intensify at a very fast rate. And given the good conditions that it's under, we're going to have to pay very close attention to it. And we're also going to have to pay some attention to what's maybe going on in the main development region, because there have been some mixed signals over there of potentially some development happening over there. And we're going to want to watch and see how this will ultimately pan out. So let's go ahead now and look at some of the conditions very quickly, and then we'll get to some model runs to see potentially, okay, what's going on with this right here, because the probabilities of tropical development are still there, ladies and gentlemen. Just the problem is that we don't know if it's just noise, which it may very well be, or does it mean something? And this is why we're looking at the conditions, just to kind of look, okay, what's the environment looking like, and how can we extrapolate, and how can we look at this at a better way? So now let's go ahead and move on to the global sea surface temperatures right here. We can go ahead and update this. Here's what we're looking at. Main development region, pretty much primed for for development. Water temperatures across much of the tropics are less of a factor and more of a constant. I have mentioned that on numerous occasions across many of my videos, mainly because of just how warm it is right now. You're going to want to pay attention to it. Also, you're seeing the continued warming in the Gulf region as well. You're going to want to pay attention to that going into July and August as more tropical development may be going underway. So that's the first thing to take a look at. Also, it's continuing to monitor our graphic right here for just how warm these water temperatures are going to get. And we can go ahead, actually, I didn't mean to do that. We can go ahead and move this here, and we can move this here of my camera, and then we can zoom in on this. Still starting to warm up a little bit more as you see that that same blocking pattern that's going to keep Erick out of the Bay of Campeche. It's going to be over the Gulf region and allow for more warming to occur. So you're going to want to see how that will pan out. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the ocean heat content. Here's the latest OHC right here. And OHC, oh my goodness, we're seeing a bit of a blow up in parts of the Gulf, right here. Seeing that loop current right here really start to turn up right here. We're seeing a pretty good area cracking 150 OHC now, which that's only going to continue to increase as the time continues to go on. Also watching the northwestern Caribbean as well. That's going to continue to increase. But in the main development region, OHC continues to increase and move further and further to the north, especially since the 1st of June right here. You saw a bit of an increase in OHC, as well as just how much further to the north that this is moving. So that's some stuff that you're going to want to pay attention to going forward as well. Let's go ahead now and take a look at the potential wind shear, and let's go ahead and use the European to use that. So here's the European's wind shear as of right now. Ultimately pretty blocky across a lot of the Atlantic right now, but watch how these wind shear patterns do start to evolve. You're starting to see more of a wavy pattern of wind shear, and you're going to want to watch to see what happens in the main development region, because yes, there is some high wind shear right now, and yes, that could cause some be a factor into excuse me, there could be, and this could kind of, at least for right now, or keep things unfavorable. But watch what happens as we get to the 20th, the 21st, and the 22nd. You start to notice that there's a pocket of low wind shear that starts to move across much of the eastern main development region. You're also noticing that the shear pattern does start to get more wavy as well. You're starting to see more troughs and ridges in the tropics. That's indicative of a pattern starting to shift a little bit towards more of a mid to late July pattern. And then as we get to the 26th and the 27th, you're noticing as well that wind shear starts to lift across much of the main development region, and that continues for some time. And then around the 29th, you're starting to notice the wind shear becomes a little more unfavorable, and then from then on out, it's just, we're going to have to see how this will ultimately pan out. But by and large, you do start to see a clearing out of the wind shear around June 22nd, and I think that's why the European continues to highlight that as a potential risk for tropical development. So that's what we're looking at right here. Let's go ahead now and take a quick look at the moisture components as well as the precipitable water anomalies. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the moisture. Still pretty dry across much of the main development region as well, but ultimately what you're noticing with this as well, and we can move this up a little bit, this is around the 19th of June, you're starting to notice a bit more of an increase of moisture. Starting around the 22nd and the 23rd, you're starting to see a couple tropical waves move off and potentially open up some more moisture by around the 28th of June, and you're seeing a pretty good pocket of moisture, coupled with the fact that the wind shear is going to be decreasing at that current point, and the Sahara dust is going to be lifting a bit further to the north, so you're going to want to keep very close tabs on that. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the precipitable water anomalies right now. Things continue to look pretty interesting, to say the very least, at least in terms of a kind of a difference from the climatological mean. What you're noticing here is you're noticing more moisture than average across much of the main development region, across at least parts of the development region that does see development in June at that current point. And you're still seeing some below averages across much of the subtropics and the northern tropical regions of the Atlantic, but that's mainly Sahara dust right there, so you're going to want to pay attention to it. And you're also looking at a more moist environment going into July as well, so that is something you're going to want to watch, and that's also, I believe, a reason why the European ensembles are highlighting this as a possible risk. So the main development region needs to be watched as well as Erick in the Eastern Pacific as well. These are some tropical threats that we need to continue to monitor here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. So that's kind of what we have going on with the moisture. Let's take a quick look at the 500 millibar vorticity just to kind of see, okay, how much can we verify this possibility right here. So let's go ahead now and move back to around 5 days out, which is the 21st, and then it starts to, you're noticing a little bit of vorticity starting to link around across parts of the main development region around the 25th. Yes, there is some pockets of that continuing to span. You're seeing some vorticity start to spin up and all of that, but that's mainly non-tropical stuff right there, so I'm not paying as much attention to it. But you're not seeing as much vorticity as what I was seeing in previous runs that I was looking at. So ultimately, why am I looking at this? Because, well, if there's a chance for tropical development, I want to get to the bottom of it, and I want to get to know, okay, what are we thinking right here? And why is this being highlighted as a risk? So that's kind of the situation that we have for this. One last thing I do want to do before I end the video, I want to pull up the GFS. Somebody please, all I'm going to say is the GFS is on that stuff. cops need to be called, and the GFS needs to be fixed. That's all I'm going to say about that. We're going to close the video out. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you want to help out, hang out, or you want to ask us questions, be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that is in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.